Expungement in Illinois is essentially when the case file from your charges gets completely destroyed on all levels, including the court system, the arresting agency who issued the charge, as well as the Illinois State Police who keeps record of the charges that are against you. Once a case is expunged in Illinois, it completely destroys it as if it never existed. To be eligible for an expungement in Illinois, there's a few outcomes on your case that would make you eligible. One of those outcomes would be if the case was completely dismissed. The other would be if you're sentenced to supervision, you can expunge that, but you do have to wait 2 years from the termination of your supervision sentence. In Illinois, you can also be sentenced to something that's called qualified probation, which then would be eligible for an expungement so long as you terminate that probation satisfactorily. So for instance, if you were charged with a crime, you would go to court and you would have to handle that case as a pending case. Once you're sentenced on a case or the case is dismissed, that's when the time period starts to determine the eligibility of expungement. If the case is dismissed, it will be eligible for an expungement, or if you're sentenced to supervision, it will be eligible for an expungement 2 years after the termination of that sentence. Once your case is eligible for an expungement, I would always recommend to hire a lawyer. We would file a petition to expunge with the court. The court then has roughly about 60 days to process that petition. The state's attorney could potentially file an objection to that petition, and there would be a formal hearing on that objection. Although, if there is no objection by the state's attorney, it will likely get granted within about 3 to 4 months after the petition for expungement has been filed. Once a petition for expungement is granted, that granted order is then sent to the arresting agency and the Illinois State Police to comply with. Once they comply, it's going to be completely off your record as if it never happened. This is going to be beneficial for you when it comes to applying for housing, for loans, for jobs. It would not show up on a criminal record once it's been expunged.